Good evening. This is Rod of Michael speaking. I come to you with another video number 6. This video basically I want to discuss my journey or my experiences I had with the church. And please note that, as I said in my disclaimer, this is my journey. I'm not here to put the church down or to degrade anybody. It's just what happened to me in my walk with the church. When I was a teenager, I used to attend many churches with family or friends. I used to attend different types of churches. And the funny thing is, I always came out empty. There was never a fulfillment. No matter where I went, it was always the same thing. So I began to have a problem with the church and ask myself, is this truly the house of God? I remembered in those many years when I was still a teenager, the church always signified wealth or fancy dressing or a place to socialize or a place where friends meet friends and gossip. And that was always my way I see, or the way I looked at the church. And this continued. I remember when I became an adult, a young man, I went to this very wealthy church. It was an extremely wealthy church. And when I came in there, everybody was well dressed. Most of the members drove the latest cars, and it was really state-of-the-art type of building. I can remember I went to the refresher room, and when I came in there, somebody next to me came to use the refresher room, and I remember his cell phone rang, and all he did was discuss business. He discussed deals on a Sunday in church, talking to his business partner about deals. I was so taken back, saying this is a house of God, and here's a businessman doing deals on a Sunday. He could not even give God just a few minutes or an hour or so of his time, of his undivided attention. His mind was more on business than serving God. So this is the experience I had, and it continued throughout my life. And I continued to go to church having no fulfillment. And maybe this can give you a reason why I decided to leave the church. Okay, the first experience I had at church was in a place called Mercado, where I was accompanied with a friend that invited me to his church. We went to his church and we sat down, but I kind of noticed that the area was quite dark. The church area was quite dark, and I saw the pulpit, and then I looked at the pulpit. I saw a demonic spirit on the pulpit looking back at me. And with the gift I have of seeing, I looked again on the platform. There was a blue type of curtaining, see-through curtaining. I started seeing demonic activities behind the curtain. They were running like to and fro as if afraid of me. I didn't take much notice. I didn't say anything until church was over. And then I told my friend what I've seen. Thinking it was over, he invited me to come and speak with the pastor of the church, which I did. I remember I got to the pastor's house and made me a nice cup of tea, and then he asked me, "What did you see in my church?" So I explained to him. I said I saw a lot of demon activities, and I saw a huge demon in front of the pulpit, and I told him that this church has an evil manifestation and I needed to know why. I remember the pastor looked at me with such hazy eyes. He put his head down and he took about a minute or so, and then he said, "Yes, you are right. The church used to be a place that was used for cult activities. It was a cover-up, and the previous pastor was dismissed. Actually, he wasn't dismissed. He left the church with millions of dollars of church money, and he disappeared. And anyway, he took over the church as a new pastor of the church. So I explained to him that your church needed to be cleansed because the demon activity is still very prevalent in the church. I then went to another church in the same area, and when I got there, I found that the pastor is focusing mostly on the female participants, and all that he was saying is, this female, God has blessed her with a car, that one, God has blessed her with a house, and he was just worshiping the females in the church. And I felt how the male in the church were feeling so kind of not appreciated. I walked out of that church feeling very, very lost and without any spiritual feeling that I had. It was just empty. My next visit in a church was in the same area. I went with my then girlfriend at that time. And then before I entered the church door, I was met by a demon standing right at the door that refused me entry. I turned around and I said, "This is not where I want to be." This continued. I then went to another church with a family member. And when I entered that church, I again saw on the pulpit a huge demon with a massive head and very, very big lips. Again, the demon looked at me, and when I looked around the church, I saw huge owl-like creatures all over the walls and on the ceilings, and I could not believe that there was so much activity in the house of God. I was so lost. That church also came out, and I explained to my family member what I've seen. I went into another church. This was the last one. That was in my own hometown, where I was invited to attend. When I got there, the brothers and the church members and the elders, they all rushed me, wanting to know what is my ailment. The one asked me, "Do I have HIV?" The other one asked me, "Do I have marital problems?" The other one asked me, "Am I sick?" And that was very, very painful for me to enter a church where I'm already accused of having these ailments. So I said to them, "No, I'm only here just for prayers." And they walked away very, very sad because they have not achieved what they thought they're going to achieve. When that was over, I was very disgruntled, very negative about church life. But I continued. I then met a friend of mine in a place called Pretoria, and him and his wife ran a church, and they invited me to go with them. In fact, they invited me to come and preach, and I went. When I came there in that church, That was the first church where I found was kind of clean, and I enjoyed the sermon. I sat down and we worshiped God and we prayed. But something happened. As I was testifying and preaching, a little boy came in, walked in. I remember he was all dirty. You could see he didn't eat probably weeks. He was all dirty and smelly, and you can see he had no home, he had no place to stay. He walked in and he just came into church and he put his head down and he lied on the floor and he slept. So I said to the church members, did anybody notice who walked in the church? Everybody stopped and they turned around and they saw this vagrant or this poor little boy lying on the floor. And then I said to the congregation, I said, who knows who he is that walked in the church? What if that was Jesus that just walked in that church? What do we do? What should we do as church members? Should we chase him out? Should we feed him? Should we clothe him? Should we pray for him? So the church was very stunned by what I said, and everybody moved to help this guy. They gave him monies, they gave him food to eat, they gave him a place to sleep, to wash himself up, and you could feel the joy in his heart after he was taken care of. And that was my testimony in that house of God in the area called Pretoria. I then had another experience. I went to this park and I found two vagrants just lying on the grass. I walked up to them and I greeted them and they greeted me. I noticed the one was all scarred up. He was full of scars. All scars all over his body, his head, his body full of scars. And they were still raw, some still with blood. So I asked him, I said, what happened to you? Why are you so wounded? Why are you so full of scars? He looked at me, picked up his head, and he said, you know, I'm useless. I'm so useless. I cannot even die. All I wanted to do was die, and I cannot even kill myself. And then he said to me, last night, I took a chair, and I stood on a chair, and I put a rope around my neck, and then I kicked the chair, and the rope broke, and I came crashing down. And he kind of laughed with a little grin on his face. He found it so amusing. He said, I then went in the street, in a busy street, and I thought this time I will die. And he threw himself in the traffic and he was hit by a vehicle. And believe it or not, not even one bone in his body broke, just the scars that I saw that remained. So I asked him, why is he so determined to take his life? And he said, he has nothing left to live for. He used to be a worthy man in society, having a job, having a life, and all that is taken from him. So there's no need for him to live anymore. So I knew exactly at that moment that was my job and my task to minister and to pray for him. But I was kind of worried because the other guy looked at me with a kind of an evil intent. And I became kind of worried about why he's looking at me like that. Then he scuffled into his bag and I said, is he going to pull out a knife or a gun and shoot me? I was kind of scared. And believe it or not, he pulled out a Bible from his bag. And we started to have Bible service in the park. And we talked about God, we read the Bible. And when I was finished, I felt so fulfilled because they were so happy. I gave them some money to get some food and to clean up. And I left them. And that's a testimony that I'd like to tell the world, because that brought me an immense amount of joy to help these two guys that had nothing. So that's my testimony that I want to say this evening. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you can wait for my next video. It will be out soon. And please remember, like I said, this is my story, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody or if I offend the church. It's not my intentions. It's just my intentions to tell my story and hope that my story can bring some joy or some love in another person's life. Thank you, and God bless.